Hello everybody, I'm Kate Cass, and welcome to our edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about the Owl House episode, Knock Knock Knockin' on Hooty's Door. An episode led and told by Hooty. Oh boy, this can only go so well. When Hooty sees the residents of the Owl House are stressing out over their latest obstacles, he decides to do something about it. Whether those are helpful things, we can only find out by taking the journey. What follows are vignettes dedicated to the Owl fam being forced to work things out whether they want to or not. Okay, that probably doesn't do the episode justice because this is one of the most beloved episodes of season 2, but that doesn't mean we can't be honest about the fact that this is a glorified bottle episode.
I'm doing a bottle episode.
It did kind of remind me of watching Steven Universe when it was airing, where an episode would have a vague, almost mundane premise, only to have it be some of the most game-changing stuff the series had concocted. So the easiest way to go about covering this episode will be to do what the story itself does. Break it down into the 3 separate segments where Hooty tricks King, Ida, and Luz into getting out of their own heads and helping them solve their problems. The first story has Hooty trying to help King figure out what kind of demon he is so he can understand the changes he's going through better. Anyone who's watched my other videos on the Owl House knows I'm really fascinated by the creatures that live on the Boiling Isles, and I have been very fascinated in discovering King's origins. So getting this crash course of sorts on the categories of demons and how to identify them was pretty fun for me. I especially love this little Easter egg on this chart of various demonic creatures, where one of the species listed is pocket monsters, which is either a cute callback to something the artists or writers are a fan of, or a poke at the televangelist by even just for a moment pretending to validate their claims.
Pokemon world is a world of the demonic, of the satanic.
It's funny how dumb you are.
I definitely say this is the most comedic of the 3 stories. Most of the segment is King and Hooty messing around, putting King through tests to determine what kind of demon he is. And aside from this little dance King does that was gift almost immediately, naturally, that's about it until we get to the conclusion of these tests. In the end, the result is that there is no result. After combing through every bit of research on demons they could, Hooty doesn't discover anything. Nothing about King matches up with any other catalog demon, which 1, only makes uncovering King's origins all the more desirable, at least for me, and 2, just makes King feel worse. To Hooty's credit, he does try to put a positive spin on this, saying that this just means King is unique and special and doesn't have to worry about being anything but himself. That was pretty sweet. But it doesn't make King feel any better. All this digging and subjecting himself to all these painful tests only makes him zero in on why he's been so insecure about all this, because it reminds him how truly alone he is. With nothing else out there like him, without any family like him, and without really understanding why he doesn't have any family like him anymore. He feels abandoned and alone. What's really clever though is that once King is finally honest with himself about why he's been so frustrated, he inadvertently discovers something about himself, when all of his pent-up emotions bubble to the surface in the form of using Screech on Hooty. And it's super effective. It's not a pleasant way for King to confront those questions by any stretch, but letting it all out was really the only way to do that. It was the only way he got something resembling a clue. But naturally, because King just yelled in his face, Hooty thinks he failed him. So he tries again with Ida. Ida's had a lot on her shoulders this season. With her magic being weaker and Belos' plans only getting closer and closer to fruition, she starts obsessing over becoming a stronger spellcaster, even with the hindrances caused by the curse. But she's also pushing herself so hard that she's wearing herself out. So Hooty tries to get her to take care of herself, which is a nice thought, but his, methods could have been better. Okay, I know Hooty creeps me out, but those cookies are really cool. Please tell me someone made those in real life. There's no way someone hasn't yet. Once again, Hooty's well-intentioned actions are terrible and backfire. When Ida falls asleep, her dreams are more heightened and aggressive. By putting her face to face with the owl beast. In the most Ida way possible, Ida takes it as an opportunity to confront the biggest obstacle in her life, her curse, and how it's hindered her. This is easily the most powerful story of the 3, and probably could have made for an episode on its own, but as essentially the culmination of Ida's struggles with this beast inside her, it's an incredible few minutes that really gets to the root of Ida's problems in dealing with the curse. The fact that this is a dream only adds to its effectiveness. Everything already has a surreal, uncertain air to it built in, so you're just as uncertain watching it as Ida is walking through these disturbing memories and abstract images imagery. The colors get stronger and the animation starts to warp in uncomfortable ways. It's not the most mind-bending work I've seen in a dream sequence, but it's enough to convey the obstacles Ida's faced with her curse over the years without really needing to say anything. Given the fact that this is all in Ida's mind, it would have been easy to have a cool battle or something between Ida and the beast, metaphorically vanquishing this thing that's inhibited her for most of her life and proving that she can get herself back to the way she was before by just being stronger. But as we've seen, this isn't something Ida can get rid of. What these vivid dreams force her to confront is how she's been dealing with all this. The first instance is a memory of Ida having an episode in the early days of having the curse and accidentally hurting her father. Even if we don't see the full extent of his injuries until a future episode, in the moment, it was still a shocking revelation, to say the least. Ida's curse handicapped her dad to the point that he's unable to continue his work. That kind of consequence is going to weigh heavily on anyone, much less a kid. This one really resonated with me the more I thought about it, especially after we meet Ida's dad properly in Elsewhere and Elsewhen. It's not a complete one-to-one translation, obviously, but parents having to give up opportunities or make big sacrifices because of what their kids are going through is a common obstacle when raising kids dealing with physical or mental disabilities. One that, if you've seen it happen, you can feel guilty about. Even if it's not really your fault, it can sure feel like it. The other memory we get a look at is another interesting one where Ida had a bit more control over the situation. We get to see her break up with Rain, a moment that upset Ida so much it triggered the Owl Beast. In a truly gut-wrenching moment, Ida hides that the curse is taking over from Rain, and they leave while she's standing there suffering, with her present self grabbing her, shaking her, while begging her to not make this mistake again. Whether Ida pretended to be fine in that moment because she wanted to appear strong or didn't want to burden Rain with her problems, it's that very distance she creates that was the final straw for them. Turns out Ida not wanting Rain to see that side of her is the very thing that caused the relationship to falter. Yet another really impactful moment. It doesn't resonate with me as much as the previous scene did, but I could definitely see it being a wake-up call scene. The kind where a viewer can see that more damage could be caused by shutting people out rather than just being honest and telling them how you feel, even if you think what they see won't be pretty. The moment that brings all this home is when Ida is left alone with the Owl Beast. All this time, she's been putting the blame on all of her problems on the curse. Having something that turns you into a monster with little prompting living inside you at all times is definitely terrifying and difficult. But in this moment, Ida realizes that the beast is just as tethered to her as she is to it. Part of what's caused a lot of the problems she's had with the curse is how she's been dealing with it, as this separate entity that maybe one day she can get rid of entirely. But she can't. The Owl Beast is a part of her, whether she likes it or not, and fighting that is just as, if not more inhibiting, than the beast itself. Despite the very obvious allegorical nature of it, I'm not going to go into how this could apply to dealing with real-world mental illness, because I don't know how qualified I am to do so, but I will say that it is a solid method for dealing with any personal struggle. Not by pushing through the tough parts, but learning to take care of it and yourself accordingly. I'm sure a lot of us wish we could just wrestle with and punch our anxieties and disorders in the face, but sadly, science isn't there yet. Ida can't take away the curse, but she can learn to live with it as a part of her, just like anything else. Once Ida comes to terms with that and accepts the beast, she is rewarded by digivolving. Wow, that must have been a fun design to put together. Fan artists went crazy after this episode aired, let me tell you. But all Hooty sees is another monster, so he thinks he's failed Ida too. Which means, then there was one. So the way they introduce Luz's problem is a bit weird. She's trying to figure out how to get information about the human who traveled to the demon realm many years ago, but can't focus because she can't stop thinking about Amity. She wants to become more than friends, but is afraid to take that first step. Not sure what impressing Amity and trying to get home have anything to do with each other, but oh well. That's not what people remember about Hooty trying to help Luz out anyway. This is. Just when I thought Hooty couldn't get more unnerving, Love Boat Hooty. Thanks, I hate it. All that said, this is super cute. Last time we saw Amity was with this impromptu peck on the cheek she gave Luz, so it was nice that even if it took a few episodes, the next time we see her, they're addressing that right away. With the girls still grappling with these new, confusing feelings they have, and Hooty trying to speed things along. So we've got the trick two people who clearly like each other into going out situation. Cliché? Heck yes, but people like it. And in true Owl House fashion, they take it to the extreme in terms of the comedy and visuals, and it's equal parts funny and disturbing, while adding some extra nuance to this AO3 one-shot of a premise. Like with the other two, what makes this all fall apart isn't really Hooty's interference, but Luz getting in her own way. Amity kinda likes the cute gestures in the Tunnel of Love, but Luz is so insecure and worried about looking embarrassing that she doesn't notice. We've seen that Luz has had trouble connecting with people through her more eccentric side, so it's understandable why she tries so desperately to make sure that doesn't happen again with someone she really likes like Amity. But Amity's got her own insecurities about being her authentic self, so Luz shutting this whole thing down makes Amity think she doesn't like her after all. Unlike a lot of kids in stories like this, Luz and Amity already have a long history of rejection related to expressing themselves openly and honestly. For them to finally get together, they need to see that this is a safe place to be themselves, because that's what they like about each other. But they aren't there yet. And because they aren't, Hooty, once again, thinks he's failed. Therefore, Hooty tries to rip himself out of the Owl House because he doesn't deserve to look after people he can't help. That's a pretty believable reaction from Hooty, to be honest. I'm more surprised just how integral Hooty seems to be to the structure of the entire Owl House. I'd say I have more questions concerning things like the Port of Hooty now, but that would mean learning more about Hooty, and that's okay. I think I know everything I want to know about Hooty. But Hooty is still a member of this ragtag little family, so the others try to help him like he somehow helped them. Hooty is wallowing in self-pity for not being useful, when in reality, he forced them in his own weird little way to confront their problems head on rather than distract themselves with something else. Once they did that, everything fell into place. They discovered new things about themselves that they might not have otherwise, and they are all better for it. It's surprisingly fulfilling to watch all these revelations come together. Everyone does look and act more confident than they did at the beginning of the episode. That is, except for Luz, who, in order to face her own issues and calm Hooty down before he tears the Owl House down, has to work up the nerve to finally ask Amity out. And it is so adorbs. The animation is what really sells it for me. The expressions, the way they fiddle with their hands while being so stiff, and the ever-increasing blushing just makes the whole thing feel very realistic and exaggerated at the same time. After being too shy to admit their feelings for so long, watching them take this next step while being awkward little beans the entire time is such a great payoff to this arc. Plus, being more open with Amity means having someone around who can help her decipher the information she has about Philip. So, what do you know? It all came together after all.
They're adorable and deserve all the happiness!
You know, I may give Hooty a lot of flack because he's a sin against nature who gives me the creeps, but credit where credit is due, he really shined in this episode. At the end of the day, he truly loves the family and the home he inhabits, and if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have been able to grow stronger and closer all this time. Guess I was wrong about you, Hooty. Maybe you're not the noodly nuisance I thought you were.
When you see this finds its way to King Clothorn.
Oh my gosh, a bug! Ah! Whoopsie! Hope that was junk mail!
Never mind. Worst character. No feelings changed. Well, in spite of that final note, overall, Knock Knock Knockin' on Hooty's Door was a real standout in the first half of season 2 of The Owl House, and it's easy to see why. It's down-to-earth, essential viewing. It's just the main cast trying to get through one night, but so many challenges are faced and revelations are reached that it feels just as victorious as any battle in the show. Unlike most shows where characters will, realistically, in my opinion, bottle up their issues until it explodes at the worst or least appropriate times, The Owl House actually forces its characters to deal with their freaking problems in their downtime. And while I don't mind the effect of the former approach, in fact, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm constantly defending it, I will admit the latter portrayed here and in future episodes is quite a refreshing angle, and it's probably one of the main reasons why shows like this and Ted Lasso feel so, for lack of a better phrase, revolutionary in the television landscape. I did hear some people talk about how each of these stories could have easily made for full episodes, and while I get that mindset, I feel like the way they went about it was for the best. Aside from maybe Ida's, a lot of these conflicts would have felt drawn out as plots for full episodes. Besides, I think what this was really meant to be was a final chapter. All these have been struggles the characters have been dealing with this whole season, if not the whole series, and this was a transition point from one status quo to another. It kind of reminds me of the feedback towards this one episode of My Little Pony I reviewed a few years back, Fluttershy Leans In. In that episode, Fluttershy, after several seasons of being timid and complacent, stands up for herself almost immediately and is proactive. A lot of fans complained about this, saying that there was no build-up, which there isn't in that episode, but in actuality, the build-up was everything in the show before that. That was where things finally changed for Fluttershy, and now for the residents of the Owl House. On top of all that, the presentation is really stylish this time around. The storyboarders clearly had a lot of fun with this one, and it shows, creating outlandish, enlightening, and heartwarming images all throughout. Coupled with strong callbacks and a tight thematic structure of tackling the same issue from multiple perspectives, and yeah, it's just a really good episode. And we have Hooty to thank for that. Man, I hate that I have to say that. Thanks for watching, everyone. Definitely let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About. I want to give a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including Chelsea A. Crandall, David L. Sproul, Hawk Hero, Jinx Productions, and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, you can check out my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as my other social media if you'd like to check out any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.